Well, Shaun Johnson, welcome to Play Fearless.
Thanks for having me, brother. Thank you.
It's been a while. It's been coming. It's been coming.
This guy, he's good. He's finally got me. This is the least I can do, bro. After everything we've been through, for me to be able to come on here for you is it means a lot. So
appreciate it, mate.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I mean, you are in town specifically for the podcast, and obviously fitting in a bit of Fox Sports in between.
Yeah, I'm happy to run with that.
Let's go through some stats, mate. 268 NRL games, 44 of those at the Sharks, where we met. 32 games for the Kiwis, 1 game for the NRL All-Stars. You were the leading point scorer in the Rugby League World Cup of 2013, scoring 6 heartbreaking points against the English in the semi-final, which I've still not forgiven you for.
I haven't forgiven myself.
But we'll probably talk about that try at some point. You won the Four Nations in 2014, becoming the Golden Boot winner as well that year. Since then, your career, fair to say, has taken some twists and some turns. Last year in particular, a real probably career best year.
Yep.
And then this year, choosing this year to be your last year. So my question for you is, after all of that, when did you know it was time to retire?
Firstly, even reflecting on half the stuff that you've just read out,
and that's not even half of the stuff, right? There's so
but
much
even
more.
that in itself, that still doesn't even really register for me. I'm like, man, I did that. I did those things, So it's still very much all set, like sort of setting in and still sort of processing the whole thing. But I've known for a while, to be honest, bro. Even when I extended last year for 1 more year, I was having chats in and around retirement, possibilities then. And I don't regret at all extending for this year. This year, it sort of made it clear to itself fairly early, with my body it just didn't allow me to do what I wanted it to do. And I saw the impact that was having on me, firstly at training, not being able to complete sessions, and then 2, the flow-on effect in games and not being able to actually do what I wanted to do. I then picked up injuries that kept me sidelined throughout the year, and rehab's a lonely place, man. And I don't know if... we've probably shed enough light, or athletes in general shed enough light on, what rehab can be like. The work you've got to put in to get yourself back to NRL standard is immense, and maybe it was just one too many of, visits to that place where, I remember one day in particular, I was out there sort of just doing some outbacks, doing some shuttles, and I was just pushed off the line one day, and I looked at this line and I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it just was as simple as that, sort of just cemented it for me. And I think I'd sort of said it enough to people that couldn't hold me accountable for it, like my wife, friends, brother, where it just became a time where I had to say it to someone like our CEO, our head coach, our recruitment manager, where they went, yep, look, mate, we'll support you. We know you've been sort of stewing over it, so let's just get on with it. Yeah.
And what, they talk a lot about, athletes kind of, you retire twice, once in your head and then once officially. What did it feel like as soon as you'd said that? Was there any moment of kind of, oh shit, what have I done? Or was it actually, okay, it's done? Was it or a mixture of all of that?
It was probably somewhere along the way, definitely a mix of all of it. Initially it was like, whoa, like it's done. Like I said it. And there was an instant like, okay, I know what I'm doing now. Now, I held off as long as I could, part through being unsure, then also part like I didn't want the retirement tour vibe. I didn't want it to be this dragged out thing about me being retired and it being my last visit to all these places. I think I said it with 3 games to go, the week leading into 3 games to go, and the last 3 games, they were big, like what went in, the effort that people put in, the club, my best mate, Logan Dodds, who's in control of all the social media for the Warriors, the stories he told through content, the messages from our fans and members. I couldn't have gone any further with that, So now I'm sitting here talking to you, there's no, what have I done? I'm very much content with the decision, and So fortunate that I was able to do it on my terms is probably what I'm most proud about. Like, it was just, everything was done in the exact manner and way I always just thought, you know, something like that should have gone.
Yeah.
You know, I was so lucky I was able to still be playing first grade when I announced my retirement. So lucky I got to play, you know, one more time at home.
Yep.
And then obviously coming over here, playing the Sharks, the other team I played for, and finishing the way that finished. Yep. It's just, I'm just so thankful. And so, yeah, I'm extremely grateful that I was able to have those moments.
Yeah. We'll talk about that, the Sharks game shortly, but I'm keen to, you know, so that's when you knew it was time to retire. What I'm interested is, when did you know you were going to be a professional footy player?
Ooh. When did I know?
Yeah. Not when did you want to be?
No, when
did
did I know?
Yeah.
Was probably my first year of 20s. 20s back in the day was, they called it Toyota. It was an amazing comp. It gave us an insight into what it took to be a professional. So it was semi-professional, really.
Yep.
You know, we would travel with the first grade side. We stayed at the hotels that they stayed at. We got to play at the stadiums they played at. We were curtain raised every week.
Yeah.
And when you get to experience that and you get shown the side of the game that you'd only ever seen on the telly as a fan, that's when I was like, okay, I really want to do this. And I know I can be, I know I can do this.
Yeah. How old were you when you were playing 20s though?
I was 18.
Yeah.
18. So right up until then, it was very much but you didn't want to ask me. It was like, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But that means nothing. You know, like the reality of is not everyone that wants to do something gets to do it. And in the toughest competition in the world, and the regard I held these players in that I watched on the telly as a kid, there was a level of me that sort of thought that's not possible to do.
Yeah.
But when I realized that it was a genuine chance, was definitely my first year at 20s, and that competition allowed me to really sort of believe that.
Yeah. And so then you do come in as a 20-year-old, is that right? Or 19?
Yeah, I debuted when I was 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I still wasn't ready.
No, how so? That's interesting. How so? Because you burst onto the scene, right?
Yeah, I remember looking at players around me. I had teammates, Russell Packer, Benny Matalino. There was other Ben Hunt. There was other players in the competition that I'd played in 20s that had gone in and debuted earlier. Even some like Glenn Fisiahi. Like, we had boys that were debuting at 19, 18. And I was like, I'm still a boy. Like, there's no way I felt like I could play a game with men. And even at 20... my mindset was very much I was the boy. Yeah. You know, like, and that probably didn't shift for a couple of years. Like, I reckon maybe 2013 was maybe probably the first time I felt like I was, all right, I'm kind of feel like I can start dominating. Yeah. Now I know there's clips and I know there's footage of me looking like I dominated, but those are isolated clips. Yeah. You know, and what people were quick to forget is there wasn't much leadership or halfback nous around those clips. It was very much I was second fiddle, I was off the cuff, and I could have that one-off moment every now and then. So, yeah, man, that's what I mean by when I say I wasn't ready, physically and in my mind, but I was thrown in there. And I'm grateful I got thrown in there, you know, because it's all part of getting those runs on the board.
And it was Ivan, right, that gave you the debut?
Ive gave me my chance.
And grand final in that first year. Talk to me about that. So because what I'm interested in is, did you know you weren't ready then, right? Or is it only benefit of hindsight? And if you did know, how was that as every week you got closer and closer to the ultimate in the game, against that tension of, geez, should I be here? Like, am I ready to be here? I'm just curious about how that might have played out. Yeah,
I definitely remember me struggling to come to terms with them playing me over Brett Seymour at the time in such a big game. And that's probably how I know that this feeling of not being ready was there. I loved the experience of playing in a grand final. The build up, everything about it was just so special. I had great examples around me giving me advice on, you know, absorb it all, take it all in. It's probably the ironic thing with it all is that they told me at the time that it goes like that. Yeah. And now I'm sitting here talking to you about my career. I'm just like, where did it all go?
It went like that.
It went like that. So that experience and all these little things that have happened along the way, you know, like, I'm okay to say that I I don't feel like I was ready for that moment then. But man, I just wish, you know, things may have played out different later in my career where I could have had another crack on that stage. I'm wholeheartedly believe I'm a completely different player, and what I would have contributed to that environment would have been so much different to what the 20-year-old did on that day. Yeah.
As a 20-year-old, were you aware that how unusual it is to actually make a grand final, or as a 20-year-old in your first year going, well, look, this is how it is?
I was thinking, how good's this, mate?
Yeah.
This is what rugby league is.
Yeah.
You win games, you play in grand finals. That's what it was to me. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
It was my 16th game in my career was the GF.
Yeah, wow.
And it's probably hard. I could sit here and give you yarns of like, realistically, if the 16th game of your career is a grand final, that's all you're thinking rugby league is.
Yeah.
You haven't been through any trials yet.
Yeah.
You haven't felt any pits or lows.
Yeah.
Everything at that point was just going bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
So
was everyone loving you at that time?
I was the new hot kid on the block, and not you know, like just through how I moved and the way I played is what I'm talking. Everyone was loving it, and you know, I scored some tries, I did some cool things, and more importantly, I didn't have to be the guy. Like I had James Maloney there, I had leaders Michael Luck, I had Simon Mannering. I got carried, you know, throughout that. I did some things, but I was also part of a team that like I wasn't the main guy. So my role was so much different, so much different. Yeah.
And so when you think about that, you come on the scene, everyone's loving you, and then, you know, there's that concept in sport, the second year syndrome. I don't know what your second year was like because we've not really spoken about it, but yeah, how was that?
That's good.
That's good. Yeah.
You're going to get more guests on here, bro, if you've got these sitting on the table.
Maybe get them on board as well, Byron Bay Brewing, if you're out there, by the way. It's I'm just keen to hear about, because I'm thinking of a lot of young players that have come through recently, without naming them, but real hot players who burst onto the scene, but then that second year, whether it's a combination of teams working them out, whether it's a combination of the resilience required to play first grade and the mental stuff, you know, what was your second year like?
My second year ended up in me getting dropped. And I remember this whole concept around second year syndrome. I got selected for the Kiwis wider squad at the end of 2011, and amongst battling like a few niggles, I ultimately didn't go on that tour because I wanted a full pre-season and I wanted to come in 2012 and really just get going. I had this mindset around, I'm not going to be second year syndrome guy. Like everyone was, let's see how he goes next year. It's a mix of all of it, Dan. Like I think teams figuring you out. Like I said, maybe like I mentioned earlier, me being sort of carried in a side, there was an expectation for me to start stepping forward, and I didn't do that. There were some highlights again. You could go online and find some clips from 2012, and it would probably make me look like a world beater, right? But what I know is that I got dropped for the last game, and we were in the slump of an 8-game losing streak. So regardless of what I think or what I thought, the reality is I did suffer, you know, like I did. And that wasn't through a lack of me not applying my trade or, you know, wanting to work on my craft. I felt like at the time I was dialed in with this understanding like, man, it's only going to get harder. You know, like I remember that feeling. So whether you can approach it differently, whether you know it's coming, whether you know it's a thing, doesn't always guarantee that you're going to be all right. And that was probably my lesson, because I sacrificed things. I went in, wanted to get better, and it still happened, you know.
Did you have support around that? You know, coaches or...
I didn't have you. Where were you? I
was watching you, hoping you wouldn't win. I was hoping.
No, so like I didn't have support. I probably at the time I probably thought I did. What I have had, like, and I'm talking high performance support. You know, like I've had family soundboard throughout my whole career. Like I've been very lucky that I've got a real tight circle that have always had my back, and I've always been able to go to them for advice throughout my career. But when you're talking elite, when we're talking high level, high performance, I didn't have that. No, And it wasn't actually as big a thing
No.
as what it is nowadays.
Yeah, and because, I mean, we are only talking 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But have you noticed, I'm not really saying, just the work that you and I have done, but just more broadly, I mean, a few of your teammates have reached out since you started speaking about the work we do and whatnot, but just do you feel more broadly it's more normal? Is it, people are talking about it a bit more in the change rooms, or is it still a little bit of a secret whether people are working on the mental side of the game or not?
I think it's definitely becoming more normal, and it has to. There's so many reasons why it has to. You know what I mean? Like, the access that people outside of footy have to us and what can come with that is scary.
Yeah.
Like the pressures, social media, what we're dealing with necessarily wasn't there sort of 10 plus years ago.
Yeah, right.
Just through this one stream of social media.
Yeah.
I just think I've got teammates that you go, oh, you're working with someone, and they go, yeah, bro, I've been working, and it's like, like you don't necessarily have to be vocal about it. You do it your own way. But this sort of education is only going to benefit more athletes moving forward and forward and forward. You know what I mean? And that's probably why I've been vocal with what we do. I've personally noticed the benefits. It took my game to another level. That's as simple as I can put it. And I'm like, why keep that a secret? Why hold on to that and not, like there might be another half out there, like who is walking a similar path where they are the center of attention and they are getting built up to be chopped down, up to be chopped down. Why not show them that there are tools that can help? So it's becoming more normal, and it's only going to become even bigger in this space, I feel like, in professional sports.
Let's talk about when we first started doing some work together then. And I don't know if you'll recall this, but...
don't make it up now.
I'm not, mate. I keep extensive notes on sessions, so I can just go back to the archives.
You do too, actually. You do.
So the way, obviously our sort of relationship panned out was... came in and did a bit of a presentation at the Sharks, and the coach at the time, John Morris, was like, okay, come in and do a little bit more with the boys, and then COVID hit. And so I sort of obviously couldn't get into the bubble. And then, sort of, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months into that season, Bomber calls me up and he just says, oh, would you mind chatting with Shaun? And I was like, I'd love to chat with Shaun, And I don't know if you recall our first call, but one of the very first questions I asked was something along the lines of, so tell me what good looks like. Yeah. Do you remember what you said? No. I don't know.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I don't know what good looks like.
Yeah.
And my response was, are you fucking kidding me? You're Shaun Johnson. Yeah. and I'm interested where, how an athlete of your caliber and your experience can get to the point where you don't know what good looks like anymore.
Wow. As soon as you said that, 100%, I remember feeling that. I remember feeling that feeling of not knowing what a good performance looked like. And even thinking about that is crazy. Can we give a shout out to Bomber?
Absolutely.
John Morris, bro.
Yeah.
Like, he's a special guy. His influence in the development of my game, even through, introducing us, but the confidence he instilled in me, the belief that he gave me, the support he gave me, that set me, like, that was the new standard of what coaching to me felt like. He was very much a person first coach, especially with me. It was always a check-in about what's going on outside of footy or how's things, and we'd talk, and then it became about footy. And I just really valued that. I really appreciated that. And then obviously, our relationship growing off the back of Bomber and what he did there. Like, I remember Bomb came to me and asked, Shawnee, would you be open to, talking further with Dan? And I remember the feeling of saying 100%, like, because I was lost. I reckon I got to that point of that feeling through so many different narratives being written about me, so many different opinions being said about me. I was confused about the player I was. Was I the flashy stepper with the speed and the X factor, or was I wanting to be the game manager? I definitely knew I wasn't both, and I was like somewhere in the middle there. So you it's almost like a little bit of a trigger. You reminded me of that question.
Yeah.
It's like that. I vividly remember that feeling of not knowing who I was or what a good performance looked like for me.
Yeah.
Because it was at a time where I'd had a few injuries. My body was just like not necessarily allowing me to be that player that everyone knew me as.
Yeah.
So that whole transition of me becoming the game manager, the measured, you know, really being clear about what we talk about is what a masterclass looks like.
Yeah.
That's where that whole process started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was because you've just used that phrase there, masterclass. You know, we wanted to, or what I try and help athletes with, and you know, with you was to have a real clear picture of not necessarily what the outcome's going to be, the wins, the results, the scoring tries or whatever, but just what it felt like. So the opposite feeling of what you just described, where you don't know what it is. It's actually having confidence in the feeling of, I know what good looks like, and I know I'm capable of getting there. You know, whether I will do every week, that's a different story, but at least having that picture.
Yeah.
You spoke a lot about the you know, the stuff that's being written about you and you know, spoken about you in commentary and whatnot. Just talk to me a little bit about the impact that you had, or the experience you had with social media side of it. So forget the experts in inverted commas. I'm curious about, because you're big on socials, big following, which, you know, on one hand, you know, today's youth might see that as an absolute, oh, how good, you know. I'm curious from a high performance mindset point of view, or from a you know, someone in the spotlight who's being judged by people who maybe haven't walked in those shoes. What's that like? Did you have to learn some lessons around how you engage with social media?
Yeah, I did. Early on, I always said, if you're going to be on social media, you've got to be able to take the good with the bad. It's easy to say, hard to do. Because we're all human. We all feel, you know what I mean? So, like, man, it's frustrating, real frustrating, because until and this, obviously I'm on your show, and if you're listening in the car or watching this wherever you are, bro, like, I'm not trying to, I don't want everyone to come knocking on this guy's door, right? Or actually do knock on this guy's door, but I'll get a cut. But like, wholeheartedly, and me being honest, like, you gave me the tools to be able to deal with that. Like, you did. You made me put my energy in the right places. You made me focus on what I could control. The shift that you gave me, and it flowed onto social media. So it wasn't actually how do you deal about social media. It was how do you deal with everything outside of being in the moment on the field. You know, like, what's the best way to say it? We built like a product. I'm going to call it a product.
Okay. A brand.
Yeah, no, we did. Like, we built a product that takes away outcomes. It takes away outside noise. It takes away anything that I can't control. Someone's opinion of me, someone's tweet of me, whatever the commentator wants to say in the box, whatever they're going to write in the paper the next day. And it made me focus on the process. Like, it made me focus on the stuff that, like, is of value to me. So when I'm starting to do that on the field, I'm already, like, starting to control the narrative and what's being said. And when I realized that, you know, like, remember I came to you and I said, like, I'm kicking the ball out, or I kicked the ball out on the full. And I remember feeling like, far out, wonder what he's saying about me now, or what are they going to write about me tomorrow. And that was when I was at my lowest. My mind should never, as a high performing athlete, as a halfback of a side, you know, your mind can't go there. But it did. So the tools, the product that we built, where it's like around next job, you hear it a lot in sport now, next job, next task, little triggers, hit your leg, you know, whatever your trigger is, just to get you straight back, you know, like, all of that, without sort of actually realizing, allowed me to deal with the social media side, you know, like, and that's the biggest message I can put out, you know, like, one, we control what we can control, and then just watch everything else sort of fall in and around that. You know, like that's where I got to, and it's easy for me to sit here and say that now, but it took a lot of hard work. Yeah.
I mean, it took a lot of honesty, I think.
Yeah.
You know, because you could easily have just, because I've worked with lots of athletes who will just go, you know, I'm sweet, don't need this, you know, or whatever. And just to be clear, if that's their genuine opinion, then that's cool. But it does take a level of honesty, and also, you know, I've got this sort of like throwaway line about the mindset around I just want to improve myself rather than prove myself.
Yeah.
You know, too many athletes, from emerging athletes up, just turn up to training, play games to try and prove themselves, right? I've got to prove them wrong. I've got to prove that. And it's like, no, just get rid of that, because you can't control that.
No.
But you can control if you improve yourself.
Yeah.
And what I thought was interesting is, you know, when you're saying, I can't have those feelings, but the reality is you're human, so you will.
Yeah.
So the mental skills part is to be able to just shorten the gap, I guess, between realizing you've got those feelings or those thoughts, and then flicking the switch to that next job.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff we often spoke about was the, you know, if you make mistakes or you kick it out on the full. Just talk a little bit about how the learnings that you had around being able to reset in the moment. Because I do see there's players that you can look at that, you know, if they make one mistake, they're going to make 3 or 4.
Yeah.
There's others, you know, mentioned his name already, someone like Jimmy Maloney could make a mistake. And
Memory of a fish.
Yeah, and it's just gone, and, you know, he's on to the next job.
Yeah. It was, it does take time and application. Like, it really does. Everyone's going to have their different tools, right? But what I found was being able to let it out's fine. You know, being able to let it out's fine. But then what is it? You know, what is it? When I started doing that work around, and you sort of brought it in maybe halfway through, you know, our time, was around almost the visualization piece.
Yep.
And I remember you spoke to me, it's not about just the good. Like, visualize. What if you drop the ball, your first catch? How does it feel? And I would often sit there pre-game, I'd be lying down, stretching, I'd just close my eyes for a bit. Now I'd picture my first kick into the corner. I'd picture the feeling of the first contact. I'd picture receiving a ball from Wade at a dummy half. But then I'd also feel the feelings of a mistake, a missed tackle. Like, mistakes, like you said, they happen. We are human. And I realized, like, you don't run away from the mistake. You know, you feel it and you learn and you get comfortable in that space. And that's what sort of allowed me to flush things a lot quicker and be able to get on with my next job. Yeah. You know, that was powerful for me, man. Like, it really was. Even like back into my career, like my last 3 games, there were errors, especially my last 2 7 tackle sets, you know, like things that I wish I had my time over to do. Yeah. But we just snapped straight. It didn't affect me at all, you know. Like, I always going to have something I wish I could take back, but I feel like the lesson of, man, I wish I had that same mindset back and right back. Yeah. Yeah, because I look at some of the young halves coming through now, and it looks like they have, you know, like, it looks like some of them are just on top of their mentals. Yeah. You know, they're not perfect footy players. Yeah. You know, but their ability just to be able to stay on course. I admire it. Yeah. You know, at the age I'm seeing it at. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we had that initial time with, you know, when you're at the Sharks, and you were in that sort of a bit of a slump, but we spoke about the masterclass we created, you know, what it looked like. The product, yeah. And am I right in saying players player that year? I think you were. That was players player, yeah. I was the inaugural Porter Gallon medalist, so I won player of the year at the Sharks. Yeah, right. Yeah, beautiful. That was that year. Yeah, nice. Which people are quick to forget that. Yeah, well, hey, Sharkies fans. Oh mate, they were kind to you on the last game. No, they were amazing. Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that game a little bit later to round out, but I want to sort of follow sort of chronological order, you know. So then you injure your Achilles, right, which you know, was just awful, and I think, you know,
You mentioned about being in rehab, you know, prior to retiring and whatnot, but you know, Achilles is different level. It's next level. What goes through your mind in that instance? I've worked with a couple of people now who have done their Achilles, and I'm always interested in what goes through someone's mind when that happens, and then when the reality sets in and you see what's in front of you.
Oh, well, I've always been a little bit of a glass half full.
Yep.
I have. I've had a couple of big injuries.
Yeah.
You know, prior to that, I did my ankle. And then, you know, some big sort of lengthy hammies. But yeah, then the Achilles hit, and that was an extensive stint. You're obviously gutted.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to be able to feel that, and just, you can live in it for a little bit. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, like just be cool with being in whatever space and whatever mindset you'll feel.
Yeah.
You know, like absorb it. But at the end of the day, in my position and what I had in life, I'm still winning.
Yeah.
I was very much very grateful for the things I had around me. Now, my wife, on the other hand, wasn't, because we just had our first daughter.
Yeah.
So Kayla was at the house having to deal with both of us, looking after both of us. But I had just had my first daughter, you know, and I got to be a dad.
Yeah.
I still got to go into the club and see, you know, like my mates.
Yeah.
I still had an amazing coach. I've always sort of been that way, I think, bro, where even like with my ankle, I was gutted, but it was like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And you've got reminders, you can find reminders easily of people in far worse situations than you.
Yeah.
You know, like, well, I'm sitting here, say, talking about an Achilles. Like, I can already instantly feel a million other worse off people, worse off situations.
Yeah.
So that was my mindset, Dan. And I'm not saying that at times it wasn't challenged.
Yeah.
You know, frustrations and setbacks along the way where you get frustrated. But yeah, I can say that I'm definitely more of a glass half full guy. Yeah, very much more positive than, you know, control what I can control. Yeah. And I was that way through those, you know, through those stints.
Did you think about it in sort of like just, did you have milestones in mind from the get-go, like having the return date and then working back and you know, sort of making it, chunking it, so to speak?
No, you find little wins along the way.
Yeah.
You know, like you definitely do. For me, I couldn't weight bear for like the first 8 weeks or something.
Yeah.
So it was a real win when I could start to sort of semi-weight bear.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you can weight bear and the moon boot comes off. There's another win.
Yeah.
Your first day back, even on the field's a win.
Yeah.
You know, then your first run's a win.
Yeah.
Your first calf raise is like, there's so many first along that journey that why not celebrate them?
Yeah.
You know, like, and everyone's, I guess, path back to through whatever injury. But one thing I do know is that there is a silver lining in every situation, and you can find it. You can definitely find it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because obviously someone else I work with, Alan Alatoa, who plays for the Wallabies, who I connected you with when he did his Achilles. Yeah, so for context for those that didn't follow, he was captain in the Wallabies against the All Blacks just ahead of going to the World Cup. Snap Achilles goes, and he says exactly the same thing about that you do about the silver lining. Like his wife they just had twins. Yeah, you know, and he was like, I got to be a dad. Hard. You know, like I'd have been on the road because the Wallabies tour extensively. You know, they're always overseas or this, that, and the other. So, yeah, it's a really interesting one. It's just obviously, you know, anyone, you know, people listening, they're athletes, they're coaches, they know that injuries are part and parcel of it. And I think hearing people who've been through long-term ones like that and being able to say there is a path.
And I even think on the other side of that, if you are in control of someone's rehab program, I've had some physios that probably didn't understand the human, you know, and it was all about sort of, this hammer you, and it is a lonely place. You know, you're away from the main group so much. You feel disconnected. You don't feel a part of it. Yeah. But I've had the best ones I've had are the ones that can make it lighthearted, you know, that can find the enjoyment, that can communicate and really get a feel for the human, as opposed to like, just mate, you got to do this today, otherwise, you know, like don't. There's a real art. There's a real art in that, and allowing the athlete to have a positive mindset throughout that process. Yeah, you know. So, any rehab physios out there, take it on board.
as you say, like, and you mentioned that about the coaching before as well. You know, like the person first.
Person first, man.
It's and this dovetails beautifully. So I'm going to just go back into the archives again and repeat back to things that you said to me very early on in our relationship. Like, I asked you what your goals were.
Oh, here we go.
And the first thing you said, and this was prior to Miller being born, was, I just want to be a dad.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've always wanted to be a dad. And, you know, and I'm holding that up to then sort of, as we sort of navigate into the next part of the career, when you go back to the Warriors thinking, how good's this going to be? New daughter, family around, how good. And then, whooshka. Yeah. Sorry, Warriors, you're going to be relocating to Australia. I know that's up, and well, I say I know. My sense is that's the most challenging period of your career.
Yeah, I mean, anyone listening to this who has had to go to work to provide for the family and leave the family, then they understand. Again, in those times, I did my very best to find the silver lining. To find reason, and there's a lot of other people out there in far worse. You know, like that was for me the only way I could somewhat deal with it. Yeah. Because it's so easy just to, and even in that period, so easy just to be like, I'm in the worst situation in the world. You know, like you do visit it. Yeah. But spending that year away from Kayla and Miller was tough. Yeah. I had very lucky though. Very, very lucky. I had a core group of mates around me in Brisbane. The boys, Chanel, Wade, Joshy Curran, Bailey Sirinen, Mars, Dow. List a real core group of boys that just, man, they had my back through and through, and they got around me. And without that, it would have been,
Could you have done it, do you reckon?
Well, put it this way, bro. If someone was to look at my situation from the outside, they would have literally said, what is this guy complaining about? I was staying in the mickiest of penthouses in the heart of Brisbane. The weather was beautiful 90% of the time. I was still playing rugby league with me mates. Yeah. You know, like, but probably the one bit, you know, like the one piece you trade all that for any day of the week. And it's crazy to hear you say that the one thing I wanted was to be a dad is like, it's all means nothing if you're not doing it with the people you love. Yeah. And that's, my journey has been so much better because it's been shared. Yeah. You know, and having them with me, like even being over here right now, right? Coming to Sydney, doing this is cool. But I can't help but think, it would be cool if Kayla was with the kids here, and I could have taken Miller up to the top for a swim. And it's like,
she could have come in here.
She would have sat on that chair over there and just, you know, like it's better when they're around. Yeah. It's just, that's how I feel. Yeah. My life's better when they're around me. Yeah. And whatever I'm doing, wherever it is, I can have it all, but if they're not there, it doesn't mean much to me. Yeah. So that year in Brisbane was certainly tough, but thankful, you know, and even grateful, because once I returned home and we did get to go home, there was not one ounce of me where I took any moment for granted. Being around them, being able to wake up, Miller calling my name, going to be able to drive to Mount Smart, then drive back home and sleep in my own bed. Nothing, I could tell you, bro, nothing right up until my last game was taken for granted. Yeah, well. Yeah.
So you went back to New Zealand, and up the wires is a thing. What went on last year? Like, how did that happen? Like, just everything seemed to... Obviously, I think, am I right? Was that Webby's first year or second year?
First year.
That was Webby's first year as coach. Obviously, back home. Talk to me just a little bit about your perspective on how you piece all that together. Because the team was the same. I mean, obviously, you know, I've got a theory around belonging and the importance of being in your literal and spiritual home. Yeah. But I'm just curious about maybe, you know, the role Webby played, the role the community played, the role the boys played, families, all that kind of stuff.
That's it. It felt like everything came together. Yeah. Everything merged perfectly, or as close to perfect as you can get. There's not one thing that is the reason we had the year we had. What you've touched on, Webby, what he brought, a different environment, just a real cool culture to be a part of. And he established that, he created it, and everyone brought in. Being back home, there's no doubt, being around our families, playing at a place, having our own locker rooms, having our own gym, having a home base played a role.
Yeah.
The fans, getting in behind us,
Yeah.
didn't care if you're on the bandwagon, all aboard.
Yeah.
Everyone flooded that bad boy, and it contributed. It's like a snowball. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden, as players, our confidence was growing and growing and growing. And I'm looking around the room before we run out, and I know we're going to win. It's at that point, you know, like you're looking to your teammates and you go, far out, we're winning today. Like, there's that level of confidence. It's not being cocky. When we weren't once cocky, but we were confident every week through the work we'd put in, through the support we'd had, through the coach we got, through being able to play like where we belong.
Yeah.
Like it was everything came together and just worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so obviously you went on that sort of that run, and then we've had the year we've had this year, and you know you rounded out the year this year, you know, your last game. I want to just talk about this last game at the Sharks, because I want to know what flow feels like. Because I know what it looks like.
This is where you got to cut some clips up and make me look mean, all right?
Yeah. But talk to me about what it feels like. Is it something that you've felt often? Is it, you know?
I've been lucky. I've felt it a few times, and to be honest, I actually felt it for the first time when Cappy was my coach, Andrew McFadden, back in 2015.
Yeah.
I actually ended up, that was leading into when I broke my ankle, dislocated my ankle, broke my tibia and fibula. That was the first time I felt it, and that was under Cap. And then last year, I got back to a stage where it was like, I'm moving at a different level. I'm thinking at a different level. I know what I'm doing and what I'm calling to give me what I want. I'm executing. So there's one thing thinking it, but then actually having the confidence to execute. And then that last game, I hadn't felt it this year, and then I got to feel it one last time in that last game, which was, it was just special. It's a special place to be able to sit in. It's almost like everything else around you is moving so fast, but you're just so calm. That's the best way I can describe it. Things are frantic, but you're still. Yeah. That's probably the easiest way for me to describe it. You know, you're so... I just felt... How do I even harness what I'm... Like, I can sort of, like... The sense sort of comes back to me. I just felt like I was so, like methodical in what I wanted to do. Things I was calling to give me, like, the look I wanted 2 or 3 plays later. Yeah. And... it was like you've got to just throw so many little nicks at it. Like it's like a nick, a nick, a nick, a nick, a nick. And then you just get it, you know? And it's like, then it comes. So to be able to feel that feeling in that last game, man, I'm glad I got to. I'm so glad I got to, because I wasn't even going to play that game. Yeah. This is what I'm like. I had to get like injections. I had to do some things.
Because you'd done your was it pec or something the week before? Or
no, I did my ribs.
That's the ribs.
2 ribs, bro. So I had to, and
I saw you feeling it in that game. I was like, oh, is he going to make it to Cronulla?
But it was funny, It was like Doc put some painkiller in there, and I was like, did some. So I was like, I can still feel it, Doc. He goes, should we pump a little bit more? And I was like, it was at the point where I was like, this is my last game. Yeah. Pump me, like, just do whatever you got to do.
Just get me out there.
And he just ended up unloading all of it. And I'm walking out there going, oh, here we go. And to be fair, I'm actually still dealing with the aftermath of that, which I knew willingly before I got those. That was my decision. I knew that I was going to have to pick up the pieces after. Yeah. But all worth it. All worth it.
For sure.
To be able to feel that one last time.
Absolutely. And obviously I was at the game, and my family came down, we watched the game, and what was really interesting after the game was the way in which the Sharks fans stuck around. The Sharks boys, the Kiwi boys, along with your teammates, performed the haka. But what was most notable for me was as we were walking back to our car, the Sharks fans were walking out, and it was like, it was like they weren't they weren't filthy. You know what I mean? They're like, oh yeah, you know what? If we had to lose, I'm glad it went like that.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it was really cool, and it was it was cool to sort of be there and see that, because Jackson, obviously, you know, who you know quite well, you know, we were looking at each other going, he's not going to do it. He's not going to pull this off, is he? He is, you know, he is. He has. It was so good in that last set.
Well, I think why I'm happy, bro, and why I'm so content is because my whole journey, everything, all the work we'd put in, it's like it came down to a moment of executing under pressure when you need to, being that guy that I always wanted to be.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I have been at stages throughout my career, you know, like I love that my teammates, if I'm there with them in those last minutes and we need to win a game, I love that they felt confident, you know, like, so for me, that was that's my job. Like I wanted to always be the guy that could execute in the big moments under pressure. And you see my carry on after, you know, it's almost like the feeling of like, I still got that, you know, like, and everything, all that work I did, it came out in that moment, you know, like the whole sequence leading into that try, it unraveled exactly how I wanted in my head, you know, with the help of all of the boys, we did that. And it's just, that's where me being so content, that's why I can sit here and just like, oh man, like, regardless of how the year played out, the games we lost, we should have won, whatever. In my last moment, I felt that. And that's why I'm such an advocate, you know, like being an elite footy player, being an elite professional athlete, I could go out there and throw long balls all day. I could go out there and run a Bronco 1,000,000 times. I could lift 1,000,000 weights. What I've realized is it's what's between the ears. Like, it really is. That stuff matters, but no, it doesn't matter anymore than the mental side of the game. It really doesn't.
Once you reach a certain level.
Like, it just doesn't, bro. You can be the strongest guy in the world. If you've got nothing up here about how to deal with situations and interpret and move on, it's irrelevant. You know, it really is. So,
I was saying to you, in fact, I sent you, because we got home, I don't know, a couple of hours after the game, and I was just watching the wash up of it, and I watched it on replay. Actually, I had to watch. You know, when you're watching a game live at the ground, and you kind of you got the feeling, but I've got to see that again. You know, and so I went back and watched that last 20 minutes, and then I sent you the photo of it, flashed up, Johnson Masterclass to finish career, right? And I sent that you that bit. I was like, shit, there it is. You know, everything we spoke about, you've gone out with the Masterclass, and it was like, sweet.
Yeah. Should we touch on it quickly?
Yeah.
So if you listen, so the product I'm talking about is the Masterclass, right? So Dan and I, what I found in my performance, and when you asked me that question, what does good look like to you? And we didn't know, or I didn't know. We had to find it. We had to figure that out. I had to figure it out, and you helped me do that. So we built pillars. We often had sort of 3 pillars that if I went out there in the weekend and through that 80 minutes, we take the outcome out. So regardless of the result, these were 3 things that if I ticked, I could walk off the field with a smile on my face. And this is me evolving and becoming that guy of 80 minutes doesn't define me, and being content with where I'm at and who I am. But those 3 pillars to the Masterclass, if we tick those, regardless of the outcome, and more often than not, if I did tick those, that result was on the right side anyway. That's where I valued performance. Got away from the outcome, got away from the losses, got away from the wins. Let's focus on what's important to you to help you get the right outcome. And that Masterclass, for it to pop up on the screen after my very last game, and you sent that to me, I was like, tick the box, man. Tick the box one last time. So, that's what we're talking about if you listen to this.
Because that opened up also conversations when you review your performance, and this is for anyone, you know, because if you win the game, but you haven't ticked the boxes, like, we won the game, too often winning just papers over that stuff, right? We don't attend to the things that we needed to, so that's one of the reasons that we wanted to do that.
And that would happen. You know, we would win some games, and I could only tick 2 of the 3 boxes. you know, like, and that was just the bit of being accountable, you know, and just staying honest and realizing that the process, you're straight and narrow with it. That you don't waver from that, you know. But what I did find when we built that was that more often or not that because they weren't just individual. It wasn't like I want to run for 80 meters. No, it was a lot of it was centric around what can I do to help the team. You know, so a lot of it was around last plays. A lot of it was trying to give energy around defense. Remember, like we'd speak about me like doubling up on effort sometimes. And then even around my comms, you know, if I could walk off the field and feel like I was real deliberate and clear with my comms, I knew that would give the boys confidence. So those are the sorts of pillars we're talking about that sort of created this masterclass. And there was days that we won, and I was still able to walk off, lost. So remember, and I was sort of like, damn, I feel like I ticked the 3 boxes. So that was cool, man, and that helped so much.
Because what it does is it puts confidence back in your own. It puts confidence and understanding your game back in your hands, rather than just outsourcing it to stats. You know, like how many meters do you kick for, or how many runs do you have? It's like, okay, but how, you know?
And the best part about it is being able to answer that question that I didn't once know how to answer. If we were to measure the success of our journey, and you started the conversation, because I can't remember that, but when you've said that, I remember being that player of not knowing. And that's why Bomber asked if I could have a chat to you. He knew I was confused. You know? And now we can sit here and I'm deliberate and I know and I can feel, you know, like what does good look like to me now? That's like what we've just spoken about. You know, and that's cool. Like I feel like that right there, that's like, this has been good and this has worked, you know?
Sweet. So, Look, I'm just going to... check how much time we've got. Got a little bit of time.
Okay.
I yesterday put a call out on socials to see if anyone had any questions for you. I'm just going to take the top 3 that I can find. This one here.
Here we go.
Here we go. Without notice.
Name drop the names too.
Without
name drop who's written in.
Well,
we want to know who they're from.
This one is from a chap called Tom Coyd, MBE. So in England, MBE, you get these
like
member of the British Empire, no less. He's the coach of the England Rugby League, wheelchair rugby league team.
Righto.
And his question is, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'd be keen to hear it in your words. Was it conscious to adapt your game from explosive run threat to ball player / game manager? I know we've kind of touched on it, but yes, specifically, was it conscious?
Yes. Yeah. Very deliberate. Realizing and accepting that I wasn't, I couldn't do the things I could do. I think it was probably harder for other people to accept, to be honest.
Definitely.
You know, like
definitely.
Like I had those injuries that they do play a role. They just do. And with age, that plays a role. I don't know. Jeez, no one better pop to your mind. You tell me one bloke who, as he got older, or who when he was older, was sharper, silkier physically. Than when he burst onto the scene, if he was that guy.
Me.
Oh, here we go.
Other than me, I can't think of anyone.
You can't think of anyone, right? So like, it was very deliberate. I knew, and I'm lucky. That's why I want to give Bomber a shout out. I feel like he knew. And then here we are.
Because because like you say, like other people didn't accept that. They kept wanting the YouTube highlight reel Shaun Johnson.
Bring back
commentators.
How many times, bro, you reckon I've heard bring back the 2011 Joe?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? The guy that did one mean step every 3 weeks that you guys ridiculed. But now all of a sudden it's like you want him back. You know, like I heard, and like the people in my circle that listen to this, that have got this far into this chat, they will be nodding their head in agreement. Like, man, like you're quick to forget. Like the highlights. Guys, they're highlights. They weren't well-rounded performances. You know, so I did some cool things. Don't get me wrong.
It's a good highlight reel.
It's a decent highlight reel, but very deliberate. To answer the question, very deliberate.
Cool. Let me have a look at this one. Ryan Braley. So Ryan Braley plays in Super League for Salford Reds. Salford Devils. Salford Red Devils. I might have to just pass the phone here because there's a lot of footy speak here. Explain in your press conference, your last press conference, you were giving away a few secrets about Warriors' attack. So I don't know if Webby will allow you to go with this one, but it just says here, because I don't know what this means. Explain the Warriors' offense sequences. The tuck fan shape, is it to avoid kill defense? Does that make any sense to you?
I mean, I'm going to try to decipher the old pommy twist on it. The tuck fan shape, is it to stop
The kill defence.
Kill defence. So I'm guessing kill defence in his terms is the teams that want to jam. So that up and in.
Right.
That's killing. You just want to go and get out the back, go shut it down.
Yeah.
And the fan, I'm guessing we call it swing.
Yeah.
So it's more in the pocket as opposed
Let's
to
just
out
go
wide
with
nights.
that. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. That's what we're
So
saying.
to answer the question, yes.
Yeah.
So we play the fan shape.
Yeah.
For all you pommies out there,
Yeah.
we gotcha. We play that fan shape to nullify teams that do want to just jam.
Yeah.
But I think I'm not too sure what it's like up in the Super League. In the NRL, teams are so good at previewing that just because you see one team do it the week before, say kill defence one week, doesn't mean they're going to do it the next week because they're looking at what we do.
Yeah.
So usually, if we see the teams and we play against the teams that are really good at Penrith Panthers, really good at executing the fan shape, it's hard for us to say, we've got to go kill, you know, because you go kill, you're a step off, they just pull you apart.
Yeah.
Now, the teams that play the shape a bit flatter, or fullbacks in particular that play the shape out the back of the blocks, where they won't be so deep, they'll be a bit flatter to sort of go at you more, the Scotty Drinkwaters, the Tommy Turbos. Yeah. They're the ones you can maybe get at. They're the ones you can maybe go kill a little bit.
Yeah.
So that sort of attack system, the fan, definitely nullifies the kill defence.
Yeah.
So that's probably that's all I can probably say on that.
Yeah.
But teams down these ways, and again, not sure what it's like up in Super League, do a lot of preview, and they almost sort of each week can be different.
But if anyone in Super League wants to engage your services as specialist coach,
guys, you know,
you got some time on your hands.
I'm floating some things around down under. So hey, look, Super League, you know, you guys want to get, you know, my Rugby League Academy up there, I'll come up.
There we go, that's it.
I'll run some things.
Okay, last question from Insta that I've got in front of me. This is a cool question, and it's from someone called Gene Harvey, and I'm not sure. I'm just guessing from the Insta profile, a young person. This is cool. How to lead when teammates are dejected after tries? How do you get a message across? I think that's cool. Because I think this is later in your career that you sort of started doing this. Yeah. Is that fair to say? You were more of the speaker later in the career?
And we've got multiple leaders that can do this.
Yeah.
And I think having a different voice is important. So the first thought is getting everyone together.
Yeah.
So we adopted this concept around the All Blacks where they would take a breath. Yeah. And I remember we were laughed at in 2018 when we first did it. I remember the commentators going, look, what are they doing? Yeah. They're down 20 and they're still it's like, take the result out of it. You know what I mean? Like, so we would come together, we would take a breath, and that would be our reset. That would be our connection piece. Yeah. Good or bad. Yeah. We'd score a try, we'd do the same. We'd be behind the post, we'd do the same. Yeah. And then usually you get a message from the coaching staff, right? So that's what they're seeing. So either we would talk to the message runner, or he would come in, we'd be like, what do you got? He would deliver it, and then we would engage. But for me, I'm very much like making sure that everyone's very clear about what's most important. We've got different leaders that can do. Mitch Barnett is a great example of, he will give us the uppercut we need if we need the uppercut. Yeah. He's a great reader of the room, and he will just be like, it's not good enough, boys. Like, let's stop talking shit behind the post and start actioning. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, if that's what we need, touch base, go for it. You know, like, this is enough now. But regardless, man, like, I feel like you've just got to give clarity around what's most important. Yeah. And a lot of the time when you're behind the post and something's gone wrong, it's that very next set. Yeah. You know, and then you start talking about the little bits of detail. You know, like edges, like for me, I'm not talking to the middles about going to go back. Like, no, that's not my job. Yeah. You know, a middle will, all right, mids, let's get down there, nice and tight, shoulder to shoulder, like, let's go after him. Then my bit on the back of the edges, come on, let's just keep getting up. You know, like, we talk about our own way to help turn it, but be very clear, be very detailed in what's most important. And I feel like that's the best way.
Yeah. After that connection piece, so get connected, because often you'll see, I mean, you know, even you'll see guys looking up at the big screen, or, you know, I'm thinking even just for emerging athletes, often you'll see the kids who have missed tackles or whatever, they're looking everywhere but their teammates, because maybe they're embarrassed or whatever, but we're saying, no, get together, because you can't solve this on your own, and then come with the clarity and intention.
And I think, you know, in team sports in particular, the best teams and the most successful teams I've ever been a part of are the teams that it's never one individual's fault. No. You know, even though he may have missed the tackle that led to the try.
Yeah.
Even if it's as simple as, bro, that is on you. Your ability to make him feel, bro.
Yeah.
We got you, lad. Like, bro, you're sweet. We got you. Like, let's go. Yeah. That's powerful, eh? Yeah. Really powerful. So,
and it's really noticeable when teams don't have that.
Yeah, and it's even scarier when teams don't have that, and it's a young player, someone that's vulnerable to start with, maybe thinking what I felt at 20 years old at times. Do I belong here? Yeah. You know, and then you've got no one making you feel like you do. Yeah. Yeah, that's a scary place to be.
Cool. Well, thanks for the questions, folks. Let's round this out. We were watching, my daughter and I were sitting watching you on Fox last night, and she's just sort of like did a double take, and she was, wait, what? This is what he's doing for the rest of his life? And I said, probably not only this, darling, but kind of keen to hear, what Shaun Johnson's doing without a footy in his hands now, as a player at least. But, I know you've got a lot of irons in the fire and lots of opportunities. What's on the radar? What are you thinking?
I've got a few things I'm figuring out at the moment. The pieces I'm certainly clear about. It definitely would be the work I want to do in and around the Warriors, and setting up sort of my own academy to help some of our pathways, and in particular like the spine players and the young halves, and offer them just insights, soundboards, lessons if I can, of stuff that I wish I had access to coming through. I see other clubs have similar roles for the likes of Cooper and Thurston, and you see sort of Slater down at Melbourne a whole heap. So I'd love to do that, and there is something there. So we're working through that at the moment. That'll take up a portion of my time. And then outside of it, I do enjoy the media side. We've got that, got our own podcast back in New Zealand.
Play On podcast.
Play On Sports Show podcast. Check it out. Check it out. Like we've got that happening. I'm really enjoying that with the crew. And then obviously opportunities to come work with Fox, Sky back in New Zealand, hopefully help. Just bring good coverage to rugby league in New Zealand. I may be done playing, and my impact playing may be limited now. I feel very much driven to have an impact still. And even it was big for me to be on Fox last night. That doesn't happen often for a Kiwi kid to be brought over in an Australian market. I had a couple of messages saying, bro, like, whether you realise or not, you're trailblazing right now. Yeah, right. It just doesn't. So I want to show, hopefully a young Kiwi boy or girl back in NZ saw me on the telly last night and said, wow, like, maybe I want to do that. Like, who knows? If I can have an impact, in any way there, then it's something I enjoy doing. So a bit of media, a bit of sort of specialist coaching is what I'm sort of, passionate about.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks not only for coming on today. I mean, that was a given. You're always going to do that. But I just mean, thanks for having me along on the journey, bro. Like, it's been a proper privilege, and some pinch me moments, to be quite honest. So I just want to thank you for putting some trust in me and engaging in the way you did, because it was pretty damn cool. Yeah, no, I appreciate you, man, and I do mean it when I say, like, my journey and I did believe this. My growth would have been a whole heap different if you weren't in my corner, and I think anyone listening, it doesn't have to be, obviously Dan's got his, look at this bad boy, look where we are right now. We all play fearless everywhere, right? So search that up in itself, because this is pretty much the model I went through, right? Yeah. So it for me, this works, but if it's not Dan, and you're a professional athlete, or you're even just in an environment where you feel like you could use some mental skills to help you deal with situations better, because really that's what this is. That's what it is, yeah. Like, I highly recommend you do it, because it helped me, and I can't say that, won't say it any more times, but it just did, right? So I appreciate you, and thank you so much, man. No worries. Thanks a lot, bro. Hey, we're still going to be tight, though. Oh, yeah, bloody oath. We're still going to be tight. I'm going to crash at your place when I'm in NZ. Yeah.